Hello, good afternoon, and welcome everybody into Two-Man Game here on ClaibsOnline.com. I'm Matthew Rocchio, that is Bob Ramsey, and we're here to talk a little SLU Billikens basketball today, especially a SLU-centric episode today. We're going to be talking some NBA a little bit later in the week as I am going to be off to my first ever NBA game live in person. I'm really excited about that. But again, today, a SLU-centric episode, and who better to have as my co-host every day, and especially on a day like this, but the voice of your SLU Billikens, St. Louis Billikens, I should say, on KMOX. That is, of course, Bob Ramsey. Rammer, how you doing today?
I'm doing good, Matt. All opinions are my own, and whatever other disclaimers we can put in here.
Yeah, fairness. Exactly. All tweets are my own ideas. Nothing I say here is Mike Claiborne or 101 ESPN's fault.
And hopefully nothing. And so if I say that, supposedly you can't sue me.
Yes, I believe that's, I said with all due respect. Exactly. So, I mean, you're fine. That's been the rule for years. So we're here, unfortunately, to talk about another tough Billikens loss. They fall to the Boise State Broncos late last weekend. We're here to talk a little bit about it. It was another tough one, Rammer, for the Billikens. Obviously, the big banner headline has to be the offensive struggles throughout the entire game. No one scores for the first 6-7 minutes of the game. I think 0 for 16 or 0 for 18 was the total between the two teams before somebody finally hit a freaking shot. So the offense, obviously a big problem. And then obviously St. Louis gets the lead, never really is able to pull away. And then through a lot of fighting, it's a 6-point game in Boise State's favor. It's a quick swing back to St. Louis. But in the end, they're not able to leg out a close game against the Boise State Broncos. So overall, offensive struggles. Yuri Collins, his second game in a row with just 4 assists. What were your big takeaways from that loss to the Boise State Broncos?
You said it all. I'm done. No, first of all, let's establish something in our conversation because I respect your knowledge. And for those who don't know, Matt Rocchio is not a podcaster shooting from the hip who may or may not go to games. He goes to practices, he talks to coaches, he talks to players one-on-one. So, and you know the game. So I respect your knowledge. But let's establish right off the top. You mentioned how nobody scored the first, was it 4 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever it was.
I think it was like 6. I think it was 6 minutes.
So while we're SLU-centric, both teams.
Yep.
So are both teams really awful? Or were both teams really guarding? Probably a combination. But we often, as fans and sometimes in the media, are so myopic and looking at one thing rather than understanding there are opposing forces of nature in a given play, in a given game, hell, in a given rebound. Opposing forces of nature. So I just want to establish that from the very beginning. The other thing was I don't know if I give Maryland credit first. Maryland Providence, I think we're trying to play things a little differently than Pitino, Leon Rice were doing. Mm-hmm. I think the Mohegan Sun deal was one thing. Mm-hmm. Maryland was great at it. Providence not as good, and they lost. Pitino's team was great at what they did. Leon Rice, not quite as good, but good enough still to win.
Okay, so really quickly, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I just want to see what you're saying because I thought it too. Did you think that Leon Rice kind of went to school on the Iona tape with his Yuri Collins game plan?
It certainly appeared so.
Okay, thank you. That's exactly what I saw as well.
Well, if we both think it, it's got to be true.
I think so. Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah, that's 2 sources. We're good.
And so here's the difference in the Mohegan Sun defenses and this past week. Mohegan Sun defenses was we're bigger, stronger, more athletic. We're going to play harder and tougher and guard everybody and push out all the way to the sideline and beat you that way. Mm-hmm. One team did, one team didn't. Mm-hmm. I think what this is a elementary oversimplification of what Pitino came up with, and that is cut off the head of the snake and the body will die. And so what do? We don't think Yuri Collins can beat us by himself scoring. So guess who's not going to get a sniff? Gibson Jimerson. Guess who's not going to get a sniff? Javonte Perkins. I don't know that Sincere Parker is on anybody's radar. He's on mine. I'm desperate for the young man who I just really like. I really dig him. He's a great kid. He has marvelous skills. It's going to happen. It's just not there yet. So probably not him. We think we can man up with Pickett. And we don't think Okoro can beat us in the middle. I think that's a very generalized, and I know you dug a lot deeper into given plays and things like that, but that's my look. If Yuri has nobody to pass to, we've essentially killed their team. That I think is the philosophy of what they were doing.
I think there were parts of that. The thing that fascinated me about both Iona and Boise State was actually that I actually thought there was moments where they said, "Listen, Yuri's going to beat us certain ways, but with that, Yuri's going to beat us when our defense is on its heels or flat-footed." But and so the way we counteract that, the way we take away their strongest point, is by not avoiding him, but taking your strongest point and finding the only weakness in that strong point. And I think that honestly is that Yuri right now, because he hasn't faced it a lot because of his shot, Yuri doesn't face a lot of overly aggressive defenses that double him and force and say, hey, make the extra pass. And I honestly think, especially against Boise State, they were hedging his pick and rolls like he was a dangerous scorer and essentially saying, if you can hit the pocket pass between us to your big man, he's going to have a good hit. And Yuri wasn't taking those opportunities. And so what I commented on last week against Iona was that I thought Pitino was able to get Yuri in situations where he had a look, but because he was off kilter and out of rhythm, he tried to score over it instead. And I thought it was the exact same thing against here at Boise State, where there was a lot of times where they doubled him and he didn't make the pass and he went for the shot. There was a lot of times where they doubled him and he went for the pass and it just didn't go St. Louis's way necessarily. Like the one is the Whiting steal by where he tries to drop it down to Frank Okoro. That's the correct play. He gets almost triple teamed at the rim. That's the correct play to drop it down to Okoro. But it's just a little thing where he doesn't put enough on it and Whiting kind of cheats the pass in the lane in the first place and gets a steal. So I don't necessarily think it was forcing him to pass in a situation where he wasn't comfortable. I think it was, let's play him super aggressive and see if he can beat us in any way that way. And I thought both against Iona and against Boise State, I thought Yuri struggled just against a more aggressive situation than he's, I think, really faced this year or in most of last year.
I'm not going to disagree, but I'm going to emphasize again, I think if they take away his targets, I think that exacerbates all the things you're saying.
Yeah, and they were listen, and here's what I'm saying is, and if you go back and listen to what I said, not a single time did I think he missed an obvious kick out to an open three shooter or an open cutter. Almost every one of the times where I thought they said, beat us this way, was we're going to leave Jake Forrester or Francis Okoro open on a roll to the rim, and you have to decide which one of them's better. So part of that is a thing where goes back to one of the undercurrents of the season so far for the Billikens, which is that Jake Forrester and Francis Okoro haven't played up to the level that Travis Ford has expected them to. And so if they were dominating, if Francis Okoro was finishing consistently at the rim, both at, maybe more aggressively as a dunker, but also just his layups, and if his hook shots and things were falling a little bit better, then maybe Yuri is more accustomed in those close moments where the defense is giving him a ton of bodies right in the paint to pass it off. But they've been struggling and haven't been finishing at that level, and it's a tough game where you're not scoring a lot. And so Yuri has a mindset of, I'm going to have to try to do it a little bit myself. So you're right. It's not just one little vacuum of they're giving him the look and he's not taking it. There's 7 other variables that are going to hit Yuri every single play. And I just think that Boise State found one little window and were able to attack it in a good game.
I'm going to go Socratic method on you and start asking you some questions.
All right, let's do it.
So, because you looked at the numbers, I know you did. I looked at them, but I'm most old and things just fly out of my brain. I don't know what's going on.
They're bad at layups.
A crazy amount of missed layups.
Yes, 10 to 25.
So if you make 5 more layups, how many more assists? Where would the turnover column and assist column adjust? Probably at least 4 of those 5.
Yeah. Oh, God. Yeah.
So now you go to 8 assists, 4 turnovers, and you go 2-1, not his best, but that's pretty good.
Yeah.
And guess what? You win the game.
Yeah.
But now you're missing the guys that are getting layups are missing them. I'm not absolving Uri at all, but I think it's human nature to go, we're a podcast. We're not over the air, right? I think it's human nature to go, shit, that's not working. I got to do something on my own.
Yeah.
That's human nature, right?
Yeah, I think so. And that's the thing is, every single time that they didn't hedge the pick and roll, or they got out and ran in transition, or just any of those, just either of those two stipulations on a play, Uri was in complete control. And that's where he got a lot of his assists, and that's where he got a lot of those moves. They just were able to blitz the pick and roll at times in the game very successfully.
I agree with that.
You would just think that blitzing Uri on a pick and roll would not go well for a team. He's a pass first guy, and especially in a game where you have the size advantage in St. Louis. So blitzing a pick and roll and giving him a lot of open looks to his big men usually would go poorly for you, but I just think they were able to jump it. Here's the other thing. You talked about the shooters on the outside. You talked about last podcast, them not shooting a good enough rate, only 33% when it's got to be higher. Whiting getting that steal in the lane against Uri Collins late in the second was not by a long shot the only steal or tipped pass that Boise State got from cheating the lane off a shooter that they weren't scared of.
That's right.
That happened throughout and the other thing is, the reason why they were blitzing the pick and roll so much is because they were just throwing bodies at the paint. They didn't care if they were doubling Uri, because there was another guy coming from the weak side to chip at Francis Okoro or Jake Forrester if he got the ball. And so, they were just throwing bodies in the paint the entire night. They were throwing bodies. They were throwing bodies at the ball. That was
didn't have to be a big.
Yeah, no, they were throwing. It was an aggressive, ball hungry team. They were hustling the ball every single time. Again, it's a top 30, top 25 defensive team in the entire country so far. And so, you're not playing slouches defensively. So it's not, you got to give credit to Boise State. And right off the bat, the thing you mentioned, you also have to give credit. I honestly think St. Louis played their worst defense at times in the stretches, in the opening stretch when Boise State didn't score. I think Boise State got more open threes that they missed in that opening 6-minute stretch than they got the majority of the rest of the game. So I honestly think it was a strong defensive game from St. Louis. A lot of the times in the first half, it was bad missed shots by Boise State, but I actually think their defense at times in the second half and late in the first was actually one of the better defensive games we've seen from them. They were stopping guys from getting to the rim too easily. The big men weren't beating them up too bad. There weren't too many bad errors they were making necessarily. They weren't forcing a ton of turnovers, but there weren't a lot of egregious missed switches or just guys standing wide open. There were a couple, but I think one of the worst ones was the very first bucket scored of the game 6 minutes in when they left Najee Smith wide open on the 3-point line and he got a 3. There is a little bit of an issue with Francis Okoro and guarding guys out of the 3-point line, but we haven't had a Jabari Smith game yet, so I haven't really gotten that worried about it just yet like I did last season.
Let me tell you something. Don't worry about it because you can't.
Yeah, I know he can't.
So there's no, God, he can't guard the 3. Right. Okay, next topic.
Yeah.
That's not who he is.
Yeah.
Tommy Edmonds not going to hit 40 homers. Sorry. It's just not going to happen.
It's one of those things.
Okoro is a true 5-man.
Yes.
5 men, true 5 men. Now, talking about Kevin Durant or whoever, but 5 men, traditionally, if you're a back to the basket guy, that's not what you do.
Yeah, his athleticism is really good coming from the weak side. Once he gets out of the paint, outside, like far from the elbow, it seems a little less useful. And so, yeah, he's not great at that. So they pulled him out, and that was a bad switch. But again, overall, I thought it actually was a fairly strong defensive game from SLU. Again, to give credit to them, not just saying it's a sloppy game, 57-52, and you lost it late, so boo on your defense. It was a solid defensive game.
I thought it was very solid, and I see your point about missed open shots. But then you got to say the same thing about – that's what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. The Billikens missed some open shots too, not just the aforementioned layups.
Oh, yeah.
So I thought that's how even the game was. I've seen some criticism on social media Can't rebound, not rebounding. I don't know what people are looking at. The Billikens were out rebounded by one.
Yeah,
By one,
at
and
no point
offensive rebounding was dead even.
At no point did rebounding really jump out to me as the big problem.
It wasn't a problem.
Francis Okoro was ripping boards down. Like and I mean he had at least 6 or 7. He had 7 offensive rebounds.
Well, you didn't dominate. No, that's like I said. You've got opposing forces battling. You played even with a good team on the boards. You didn't make some layups. They had a great defensive game plan. You lost. The thing going back to your 30,000 foot look is if you're good, if you're a good team, you protect your home court. And the Billikens did not do that. They're not a good team yet.
That's all right. Well, I have one more comment, then I have a question for you, and my comment's going to be this: the only thing I have a takeaway, and again, I'm not. I hope this isn't coming off overly critical, but I thought at times in that game that it was clear that Gibson Jimerson should have been harder to guard than he was against Boise State at times. I thought there was a lot of times in the matchup against Max Rice where he showed it in little spurts, like one of the first buckets I think the Bills scored. He takes, he beats Rice quick off the dribble, pulls up and hits a little 17-footer. I didn't see enough of that kind of offense from Gibson, and maybe that's not part of the offense. Maybe I'm being hypercritical here in an unfair way, but it's just one of those things where he's the leading scorer on the team, and yet I thought it was a game where it was clear that the matchups on the wing weren't maybe not in his favor, but weren't against him. And he didn't take advantage of it to the way I think even he would have expected to. And I think it's just one of those things where I'm not saying he's got to be the guy who gets his own shot, but off cuts and things like that, when you have a advantage and you can beat a man, you have to make yourself known in the offense. And I want to see that more often from Gibson because he's such an incredible scorer. And there's not a lot of guys who can actually hang with him. And I thought Boise State was one of the teams where he could have taken a better advantage against their wings.
I am not going to say that you're wrong about that. But before I would co-sign, I would say I'd want to go through the game film again and see what may support your point. Is Travis Ford emphasized after that the offense was disconnected, and that may play into your point.
Yeah, the disconnection was right. I mean, the lack of movement by the offense off ball was the most disconcerting part of the game. And I asked Travis about that afterwards, and I think that's where he made the disconnected comment is when I asked him about that. Third to last play of the game, they're down 54-52, and they run that. It's a weak side pick and roll to an open corner with Yuri and Francis. And right off the bat, I don't know why they're running that to the corner. I don't know why they're not running that to the middle in the first place. But anyway, they run it to the corner, and Gibson, Fred, and Javon Pickett are standing at the top of the key on the wing above the break and in the corner on the strong side. Yuri curls around Okoro, goes baseline. Francis crashes as he should through the paint to the middle, and nobody goes strong side to weak side. No one changes the side of the defense and gives Yuri a passer on the other side, or tries to force one of the defenders who are standing there to move and give them an open shot. And I just thought that play, and again, it's dumb to look at just one play because it's late in the game and say, well, this is indicative, but that's just a small way to look at the fact of that the offense was not moving. And when this offense has gotten slowed down and hasn't hit their shots, and then they started cutting, that's when the offense worked. That's what happened against SIU. The offense bogs down a little bit. Gibson's not hitting his threes. Well, let's just start putting boots through the paint all game long, and some good things are going to start happening. And I just didn't see that consistently throughout the whole game. And I think that was the disconnection that Travis Ford was kind of alluding to. And that's just that's just something that hasn't been a problem and just jumped out as a problem against Boise State. You got to get that fixed. But, that's not, I don't think, a systematic thing that should be problematic multiple games across the season.
I would tell folks that ball watching is a sin defensively and a disaster offensively.
Also, they point too much on offense. Little thing, I know it's a stupid complaint, but like I remember being a little kid, talking point on defense. Don't there's too much on offense. Go this way, go that way. Not talking to Yuri like this. Like it's guys who are like they both run to the same corner, and one guy's like go baseline, or Francis or Coro's yelling at one guy, curl here. It's it's a weird little thing that I've started to notice, but it comes out to me because I don't see them pointing and doing that things defensively where you would want to see that, and I see it offensively where you don't, and that's just a little thing where it's just like again. The talent's there, the scheme's there for them to be a great team. They're a good team, but like you said, are they going to be a great team? And my question for you then is, what has to happen for the Billikens to go from good to great?
They got to find a second perimeter scorer. Javante Perkins, poor kid. It's truly heartbreaking to me that his knee's not come around the way he wants it to.
Yeah,
he's still a really good shooter.
Yep.
But to get open effective against good Division I defenses is really tough if your wheels are compromised. I mean this sincerely because I love the guy. It's heartbreaking. But back to the team. So somebody else has got to do it. I think the only one really capable is Sincere Parker. Is he ready? Has he made the adjustment to Division I? The only two that really can have a feel for that are Travis Ford and Sincere Parker. I'm almost to the point where I'd want to say, and this goes against big-time coaches anywhere, they won't do it. Sincere, you're playing 28 minutes tonight. Don't worry about mistakes. Go out, figure it out, go play. That's not what coaches do when you got to win a game. We'll live with the mistakes. Don't worry about it.
There's some coaches I can picture doing that. Travis Ford is definitely not one of them.
Coaches are control freaks.
Yeah.
And if there's a wild card out there that they don't know what's going to happen, they don't like it at all.
Nope.
And but I think Parker needs to get going. Here's the other thing. Terrence Hargrove Jr. is a great citizen. I mean, as a teammate. Mm-hmm. And
that was almost the TJ. I mean,
maybe it's time to get him more clock.
Yeah, I mean, Boise State was almost the Terrence Hargrove game. I mean, he was incredible in that game. Yeah, I'm with that. Get him more, and that was kind of the bright side to the sad part about Javante, and I'm sure it just breaks Travis's heart having to only give the guy 5 minutes 6 minutes across a game. But the positive side being that forced them to play TJ at the 4 more, and he had a great game. Had a big block, hit some threes, some great plays driving. He rocked the rim one time. I agree. Getting more bench, getting another guy who can just kind of jump in here. The way they gotten Javon Pickett going, again, if Gibson can kind of consistently keep himself at that 14, 15-point level this year, and now he's going to face even more pressure if Javante's not in the game as much, Javante Perkins, that is. I really think that there could be another level here from the wing scorers. Obviously, I think if they're going to hit that good to great, we just need to see a little bit more from Francis Okoro and Jake Forrester. I think right now
you can't miss layups. You're so right about that.
Yeah,
right. You can't miss layups.
Because right now, somebody asked me, they're like, Slutis kind of seems like last year. And I go, well, I mean, you have Jake Forrester instead of Martin Linson, and Javante hasn't made enough of an impact, and then you have Javon Pickett, and that's kind of been the difference. And that really is that's what the team is right now. It's not that much different from last year. And I think you lost a big, a really big, solid rock in Martin Linson too. And so we just talked about the 5. So I mean, I think that's why we're talking about them not being that much further than they were last year. And I don't think it's a criticism.
And that's why Parker is a wild card. What makes us different / better? Him scoring, giving me 2 or 3 threes a game, getting to the rim, doing exciting scorer things. Like he did as a junior college player, those things are critical. And by the way, anybody who likes to talk lineups, no one's a bigger lineup nerd than me. What's interesting about lineups in basketball, different from baseball, hockey, whatever, you got 200 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
You got 200 minutes. How you want to divide it?
Yeah.
Tell me how you want to divide it up. Let's talk about it.
I'll say
so, I need more minutes for TJ. Well, who's losing minutes then? It's really simple.
I think it's safe to say that we might see. Is it safe to say we might see a change in the starting lineup just because of maybe a shift in Javante's minutes to maybe get him ready here over a couple long 2 or 3 weeks into conference play?
I'm not going to go to practice until Friday, so I don't really have a handle on that. Here's the thing: he missed his first 4 shots. What if he hits a couple of them? He plays longer. Here's the thing: people have to understand. How you gave him the quick hook? He wasn't making shots. He never was a great defender, but with his athleticism compromised, he's not a good defender. Mm-hmm. So if you're not scoring and you're not defending, you can't play, folks. Again, I've already expressed how much I love him, and it's heartbreaking to see, but put yourself in the coach's position. Not scoring, not defending, I can't play you. What do? Got another look in the second half. Couldn't score. The game was not at his pace. Mm-hmm. Could it be at his pace Saturday against Drake? Yeah, it could. So that's why I'm not sure they'll change the starting lineup.
That's fair. Well,
he can shoot it. He can still shoot. Can he get open?
Yeah, and again, you talk about the thing that makes basketball lineups different than baseball or something like that. You like having a guy like Fred Thatch to bring off the bench, in different moments, to kind of pace that second squad when you have to take out some of those scores. So maybe even if you want to change the minutes with Javante Perkins, maybe it's not the starting lineup where you make the change because you still want that utility, knife that is Fred Thatch to utilize at different points. Yeah. Let's get a little bit close it out here. They played Drake on Saturday. It's a 7 p.m. game. Interesting little closeout of the non-conference schedule here before a December 31st start of the conference season in New York against St. Joe's. A quick look at Drake. Better offensive team than they are, or better defensive team than they are offensive. They're about 1/10th in the nation in a couple different rankings. Defensively, about 170th in the nation offensively. So slower game. One of the things that they're lowest in the nation as is the amount of shots they take and the pace they play. So it's going to be really interesting thing to me to see, does SLU let them dictate a slower pace, or do they come out firing and try to quicken the pace themselves as they have this entire year playing a faster pace? And then obviously the big question is when you look at DeVries over at Drake, he's an absolutely monstrous scorer, 19 points per game. He takes 6 threes per game, makes him at 37% clip this season, about a 32% clip. Last season, he's the big scorer, almost 20 points per game, 6'7", 210 pounds. So I think the big question when you look at that is just going to be, who guards him the majority of the game. Maybe that's why Fred Thatch, we maybe see him a little bit earlier.
I think Pickett and Thatch probably take turns with him.
Yeah, they're both big guys.
The game. I think Pickett starts the game and starts on him. My guess, I haven't been to practice this week yet. That's my best guess, though. And then Fred will get some work on him, and I think that's how it'll go. And you got to win. You just got to keep winning games. And now you're at a point where I'm not going to say it's not possible to get an at-large bid if you can't win the conference tournament, but I think you're just saying we got to win games.
Yeah.
Go back. Don't forget about analytics. Forget about RPI and Ken Palm and net and all those things. Win games. Protect your home court. Establish who you are as a team. Be efficient in doing that and win ball games. And then the rest of that, all that other stuff that we are hand wringing over and gnashing our teeth, that stuff will take care of itself one way or the other.
Rammer, I wasted about 9.5 minutes on Monday trying to figure out if Memphis beating Auburn, if Memphis getting the win was good enough for Memphis as a win for SLU, that it was better for SLU than how bad the loss was for Auburn as a loss to SLU. I spent about 9 minutes trying to figure out if that game actually being a big win for Memphis was a good thing or a bad thing in the wash for St. Louis. And again, it was an entirely huge waste of time.
Because
there was no definitive answer, and my definitive answer was like barely it helped them. Because Memphis getting a big win against a ranked team is a bigger like feather in their cap than Auburn losing an early December game against an unranked opponent or something along those lines.
Yeah, for people who don't like Memphis and other opponents, you got to be rooting for the Billiken opponents that you've already played to win every game.
But again, what do I do about that game when it's an opponent that SLU beat and an opponent SLU lost to playing each other? Again, it was a waste of time.
We need to get Ken Pomeroy on the show sometime and ask him. That's a great question. You would think that Memphis winning because you beat them is really, really good.
It was. I think in the wash. I mean, I think it was better for SLU that Memphis won that game. Obviously, than them losing that game, but it wasn't as big of a. It came out for me. It wasn't as big of a feather in the cap as you think it would be. It didn't change the whole quants and all that stuff. Didn't change that much.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Also, I just want to say about the Drake game. His name's Tucker DeVries, and he's an Iowa kid who's 6'7" and shoots 3-pointers. I love when basketball follows a script.
Yeah, that's the way it's supposed to go.
I just love who's this big dude from Iowa. Well, he shoots threes. He's the best player on our team. Yeah, that's just his name's Tucker. Everything about that's absolutely perfect. Just thank you. Cut, print. Thank you for that one. Whoever wrote that script, you're doing a great job right now. When do the Hoosier uniforms get rolled out for a game for Drake? That's all exactly I'm asking.
Right. So I don't know what kind of crowd the Billikens will have. It was a little bit light last Saturday against Boise State. I hope the bloom isn't off the rose for fans. The fans matter. And so, look, I hope it's a really good crowd Saturday night. It's a very, very important game.
Very important game. Again, 2 more games until the non-conference schedule is done. And then we have that New Year's Eve kickoff to the conference season against St. Joe's in New York. Rammer, we're going to be back a little bit later in the week talking a lot about NBA. Again, I have a nice little trip up to Detroit this weekend, and I'm so excited because I get to watch my first ever NBA game in person. Good. So we're going to talk about that a little bit later here on the two-man game. So thank you for joining me for this very SLU-centric episode. For everybody out there, make sure to get your tickets right now to watch Drake versus the Billikens at Chaffetz Arena on Saturday. 7 p.m. is the tip-off time. Rammer, before we go, tell everybody about your wonderful friends at Royal Banks of Missouri.
Royal Banks, they've been in St. Louis for over 60 years, and now more recently, expansion to St. Charles, to Illinois, and Granite and Jerseyville, and 3 branches in Northeast Missouri. But everywhere you go, you get the same great service. 314-212-1500, Royal Banks of Missouri.
This has been the two-man game on Claves Online. We will talk to you later, St. Louis. Have a great day.
As one of St. Louis's largest veteran-owned companies, St. Louis Acura knows what it means to serve. As we head into the holiday season, St. Louis Acura is collecting toys for tots for the United States Marine Corps and a clothing drive for local military charities and churches. Each donation can earn a gift from our boutique or a discount on a vehicle service or car wash. Please help us help others this holiday season, and thank you for helping St. Louis Acura become one of the area's top 50 fastest growing businesses for 2021.